Good evening. I call this meeting on Wednesday, September 12th, 2018 to order. Tonight, before I ask you to rise for a moment of silence, in addition to your normal reflections and prayers tonight, I ask that we each take a moment to reflect on the passing of Russell Stiles just a few weeks ago. Russ was a Navy veteran, husband, Wallingford citizen, friend to many people here, and a dedicated servant to the town of Wallingford. More specifically, he ensured that these very meetings were video recorded and communicated out to the people of Wallingford so that they could watch and partake in the democratic process as informed citizens. Russ worked for decades as a government TV crew member, making all of this possible. If you're watching this at home or you're watching it on YouTube, that would not have been possible without Russ before his retirement, which wasn't that long ago. Just as it would not be possible without the crew we have now, Scott, Tom, Scott, and now Ron, who dedicate themselves to this mission. And maybe in post-edit, these guys can post a picture of Russ in there, either right now or at the end of the meeting, so people can recognize who he was, because if you've ever been to one of these meetings live, you know who Russ was. And believe me, we didn't pay Russ or any of these other guys enough to make it lucrative by any means for the amount of time that they spent here. Russ did this because he loved not just the field, but the idea or the concept, the privilege of giving the public that sort of access to democracy. He was a founding member of WPAA. He served on the board of directors. He was the original station manager. And if that wasn't enough, he volunteered for the Red Cross and Masters Manna. But I'll remember him for being in this room behind the cameras before they were remotely controlled in a central location in the back room. I won't claim to know Russ well beyond our brief professional interactions here or the times when I came here as a Boy Scout 20 years ago and he scared the heck out of me just because he looked like he was always so serious and on a mission. But fortunately, as I got to know him serving on inland wetlands or the town council here, he had a laugh and a smile, and it was just really nice to see somebody that really loved doing what they were doing, being here for that reason, and that reason alone. He used to count us down into our meetings, signaling when the camera would begin to roll. So Bob Parisi may have actually ran the meetings all those years ago, but it was Russ telling him when to start. So thanks, Russ, and please stand. And now join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, will you take the roll call?
Certainly. Fishbein?
Here.
Laffin?
Here.
Letourneau?
Here.
Marone?
Here.
Morgenstein? Here. Shortell? Testa?
Here.
Zandri?
Here.
And Chairman Cervoni.
Thank you. Chairman Cervoni is out of the country, and Councilor Shortell has advised us that he is very unlikely to make it tonight due to a family obligation. Moving on to the consent agenda, is there a motion to approve or accept consent agenda items A through Q and S?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor of approving and accepting the consent agenda items as moved, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Passes. Items removed from the consent agenda. Item 3R. Councilor Letourneau, you've asked that this item be removed from the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I asked this item to be removed because I have some questions.
Mike?
I'm new at this, I'm sorry. I asked this to be removed tonight because I have some questions regarding this this phase of the trail. And I know we have our director of, we have our
Engineering.
engineering department here. So I'd like to have him come up. Can you come up, please?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Rob, just your name and title for the record.
Sure. For your record, Rob Boltomitis, town engineer.
Rob, I've got a few questions for you. Where do we stand as far as a plan for this bridge? Is the plan completed, drawn? I'm going to start there.
Okay. Let's start there, but if you, just for the benefit of everybody in the public, maybe I'm just going to take it back a little bit and just talk about the phases of the trail and where it's, the state that it's left in right now. I guess I could go all the way back to phase one. You know what, I'll do that. About 20 years ago, that brought us from Community Lake up the east side of the Wilbur Cross Parkway, terminated at the Quinnipiac River. A couple years after that, around 2004, we did phase two. That brought us over the Quinnipiac River and a tunnel under the parkway. So it was a short section of trail, but we accomplished a heck of a lot. Those are challenges that, frankly, I'm still amazed that we were able to overcome. Fast forward to 2015, that's when we completed phase three of the trail, probably completed in 16, started in 15. That brought us from where it terminated in phase two, up the west side of the parkway, northerly another mile, over the Quinnipiac River, and it terminates on the town's portion of Fireworks Island. So where it stands now, from an accessibility standpoint at that northern terminus on the island, the public trail users have the ability, the vehicular right, to pass through the Yalesville and the Green Condominium Association over their bridge to Fireworks Island to use the trail. But if you are a biker or a walker, we don't have that accessibility at that northern end right now. And so getting to this grant, what we're seeking tonight is for the council to approve a resolution that would authorize the mayor to execute a grant agreement with the state of Connecticut. It's a grant administered through DOT. It's called the Community Connectivity Grant Program. And that would give us $400,000 towards this project. The way it typically works, when solicitations come in from state agencies, they get passed around departments. And when I saw this, I knew that this project, what I call Phase 3B, fit this grant like a glove. So we submitted an application, it maxes out at $400,000, and we were approved for it. So getting to your question, Mr. Letourneau, what we have done so far is detailed engineering assessments of the best ways to cross from Fireworks Island over the raceway and utilize our present easements through Yalesville and the Green to complete the trail up to the public sidewalk and Main Street in Yalesville. So we have a very detailed alternative. We know what the permitting will be, and we have a very good cost estimate of what the project will be. It is not designed, it is not permitted. We hope to begin that essentially immediately. This grant runs for 3 years, and we're confident that we can design, permit, and construct this within the time frame of that grant.
Okay. I want to go back to, thank you for giving me, or giving everybody the historical perspective on this. It helps. Fireworks Island, do we own that?
We own most of it. There is a portion that is owned by the Kearns, so I would never say that we own the island in its entirety.
Okay. How much of it would you say?
Most of it.
Most of it. Okay. This pedestrian bridge is going to go on, I'm going to say on the south side of the south end of the island.
It would go actually on the north side of the island near where the trail presently terminates. It would cross in a location that is on the south side of the Yalesville and the Green condominiums, but it's really the north side of the island.
Okay, so the Yalesville condominiums, it would actually be behind between, I think the old post office was in one building and the back side of the condominiums, that's,
Correct.
okay. And that land is owned by the condominium association?
Yes.
And they've given permission to give the town
Yes.
access?
Back when that land was subject to an application before planning and zoning that allowed the site plan special permit approval for the condominiums, the town acquired those rights, those easements for the pedestrian trail. So it was always designed in the sense that for public access, we would have vehicular access over the bridge and biking, walking access over the trail portion on the southerly side.
Okay. That would have been helpful in the backup information. That was not in our backup information, and that's one of the reasons why you're here tonight. The only other thing that troubles me a little bit with this, it's a $400,000 grant, but this project is going to be, my understanding is, and you can correct me on this, it's going to be over $1 million. And there'll be funding from other sources. I know that the Friends of the Linear Trail, which are here tonight, are going to contribute some. But it's in here, we estimate the construction of this next segment at approximately $1 million for bridge and trail items. Presently available funding sources include approximately $100,000 from Friends of the Trail, $120,000 from Connecticut Deep Grant to the Quinnipiac River Linear Trail Advisory Committee, and approximately $390,000 of allocated but unencumbered Quinnipiac Linear Trail Phase 3 construction funds from previous capital and non-reoccurring accounts. So I guess we have that tucked away someplace. And then acceptance of this $400,000 grant will help close the funding gap and crucial needs. My concerns are a couple of things on this. To have a pedestrian bridge that people can walk across and bike across, to go on to Route 150 in Yalesville, I'm very concerned about that. I think it's a tremendous hazard to have people walking on Route 150, let alone biking on 150. I can't imagine anybody with small kids taking their children on bikes onto Route 150 in that section of Yalesville. It's dangerous to drive, let alone being on a bike. The other thing is, that's if you're coming from the trail and moving forward. If you're in Yalesville and you want to use the trail, there's no parking. There's no parking in Yalesville that somebody could park their car safely without going onto a side street at a distance away, getting the family out if they're going to be with the family, and have their kids crossing 150 and then down a no sidewalk area. It's just a line in the road that widens out, and then down onto the linear trail. That's one of my concerns. Second concern is the money. I know it's a grant, and the grant came from is coming from the state, and it came from the bond commission, which is basically the state's credit card. So we're putting $400,000 on a credit card. We hear at budget time what we can't afford. We hear at budget time money being spent that we can't spend because we don't know what's happening with the state. But yet the state has this money to say, here's $400,000 for a fun project. I said this before in here, the linear trail, it's a nice project. It's a great project for great times. We're not there yet. The state is still floundering, and here we are, we charged $400,000 to have a pedestrian bridge that, along with the other bridges, are going to become a cost center for this town. Someplace down the line, those are going to have to be maintained or redone. There's wooden decks on them, they're metal, they're they're gonna rust, and, you know, I won't be up here, I don't think, 20 years from now, but 15, 20 years from now, it's gonna have to be addressed, and it's gonna be a cost center for this town. This is something that, it's a beautiful project today that's gonna come back and haunt us. And case in point was Red Bridge in Meriden. The Lions Club, I think it's now maybe 15, 20 years ago, redid the Red Bridge. They painted it, they put a new deck on it, and here we are 15, 20 years later, it's gotta be redone again, at least the deck. So, you know, make no bones about it, that this is going to be a cost center for the town. And how will we address it, I don't know. But to spend $400,000, and I know the argument's gonna be, I'll hear it tonight, that if we don't take the money, somebody else will. If somebody else can sit in good conscience in their town, on their council, and say, yes, we'll take the 400,000, well, that's up to them. I can't. I can't. In good conscience, I can't say, I want 400,000 from the state. I don't care where it comes from. It's still coming from the state of Connecticut. It's still our tax dollars. I just can't do it. I can't do it. It's a good project for good times, but to me, it's just morally wrong to take money when you're broke. Don't tell me you're broke and then you're gonna spend money over here. That's like saying I'm going bankrupt, but hey, look at my new car. Doesn't make sense. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman, right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Fishbein.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Rob.
Good evening.
You had mentioned that a portion of the island is owned by the Current. Is that the newspaper?
No, Nick and Deborah Kern.
Oh, that's their last name.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Glad to hear that. How could we submit an application to anyone without a plan?
I would venture to guess that most of those applications to that community connectivity grant program did not have plans. We actually had a very detailed plan, because when we performed our feasibility assessment in 2015, they came with, as part of that package, there were 3 alternatives that had a detailed plan and a broken down cost estimate. So we probably had better materials than most applicants did.
So then you do have a drawing or...
Right, it just wouldn't be a construction-ready plan, and it hasn't been through the environmental permitting process.
Okay, is there a reason why we didn't get a copy of that plan in our
Nope.
backup?
Nope, no, sir.
You know, because when we had the problems, and we still have the problems with the existing bridge, I went out there and met with a bunch of the residents. And I don't think there was proper planning there. And I would have liked to see the plan here. But just moving forward, that property that I heard that it's anticipated this walkway / bridge is going to go through, there's like it's a very deep ravine there. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And you would cut off before certainly before the parking lot, but before the bridge at the end. And that's where you would veer off into the woods, and then you traverse that dip, and that's the bridge.
Yeah, we're anticipating that we may need a short section of basically a boardwalk system to span that.
Okay.
Because there are certainly challenges with the topography in the relatively narrow easement that we have.
Okay, when you say relatively narrow easement, how wide is our easement?
12 feet. 12 feet as it runs along the south side of the Yalesville and the Green property. Once you get to the raceway side, our construction easement and the ability to locate a bridge is actually quite wide by the rights that we have.
Yeah, it's just that ravine that's the problem. It's that area.
Yes.
Yeah, I recognize that. You know, I certainly enjoy the trail. I mean, every time I've known about a cleanup, I've been out there and attempted to do my best to help. You know, I enjoy having the trail. But just to follow up with what Councilor Turno had to say, right now, I guess people are parking in the Village Green parking lot. It's just natural, because it's really the only way to get to that phase. So, in attempting to mitigate that situation and moving it southerly, where are we intending these people to park?
If I can help, I think we're confusing, the parking will continue because our agreement allows the driving of vehicles across the bridge. The issue is someone on a bicycle or a pedestrian is not able to use the bridge for access to the trail. So that creates the pedestrian bridge need, but I'm correct, right? I mean, the
Yeah.
ability to park there will
So
continue.
we have parking on the island, I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
All honesty, I use the trail quite a bit. Most times I park down the community park side, but many times I'll park in Yalesville on the green side. I've never had a problem finding a parking space. It's not to say that, during a planned event that, the parking couldn't be overtaxed. But there's, from what I can see, sufficient public parking on our island.
Okay, so the public parking on the island, so now somebody wants to get onto the linear trail. They have now parked on the island. They've
Yes.
gone over that bridge, through the Village Green property, they've taken a left, they've parked. Now they need to get to the linear trail.
Yes.
Where are you asking them to go
It's
next?
the same access that exists right now.
Okay.
The same terminus.
So it's just the people that come to the property on foot or on bike
Correct.
that would be directed to go to this southerly bridge?
Correct.
Okay, so somebody who is coming from the north, walking, that way, you're wanting them to pass the Village Green property and then to go over the bridge that way?
That's correct. So there would be, so essentially that trail would come up the south side of Yalesville on the green condominiums, terminate at the public sidewalk in Main Street, Yalesville, and have an entrance feature at that location.
Okay, and what about signage?
As far as, the entrance
gonna be
feature would
sign-
have some type of signage, Quinnipiac River linear trail entrance.
Okay.
Presently, we have signage along the Yalesville and the green, the driveway, trying to inform the public of our limited rights, that it's vehicular only. And that's one of the reasons that honestly I am, for lack of better terms, I'm passionate about this project because I feel this is something that we need to complete for the trail users and for the residents. There is continued angst in the state that it's in.
Because the signs are like right at the bridge.
Well, because if you are out on your bicycle and you're in Yalesville and you want to jump on that trail, you're just naturally going to go down that driveway, to the ire of residents, because it's a violation of our current right.
Okay, and then I just, to share Councilor Eterno's concern is the bonding. I don't get it. We cut things at the state, Meals for Wheels, we cut $1 million out, and now we're bonding $400,000. So I love the project, but
I know.
I wish we were, quite frankly, I wish we were using local dollars. Because we have more control over local dollars and all that stuff. Just because it's coming from the state doesn't make it better. So, those are,
Well, certainly I can't answer for the bonding commission. What I can say about the community connectivity program is that its main goal is to provide safer and more accommodating alternatives for pedestrians and bicyclists. And that's why when I saw the solicitation and I saw how the evaluators were going to rank and grade applications, I knew that if they were only going to pick 1 out of 100 submissions, it would be ours because we met all their criteria to a T.
thank you. That's all.
Councilor Zandri.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. So, listening to all the different points that have been made so far, I kind of wanted to throw my points in as well. So, I'm an avid trail user. There's no mistaking that whatsoever. I I first got involved with the trail when Mary and Rich Sentner first started doing work on this. I don't even remember how many years ago, before I had kids. And of course, time in life got in the way and I kind of stepped away from it, and things kind of developed on their own. But I'm an avid user. I bring my kids down there all the time. My kids love to go on the trail. They love to utilize it. We actually clean up the labyrinth and the brick path. When we've seen the water fountain in having problems, we've called Public Works. Just recently, we saw that the water fountain was running consistently. We were going to call Public Works. Somebody else already did. So I think everybody that uses this trail and uses the entire park area uses it with some level of real passion for what we've built here. And really, it's been built on the backs of all the volunteers. But this has definitely been an issue on that side where it terminates because of confusion, even with the signs. So even with the signs, you've got residents that get overzealous, and sometimes you can kind of get their passion for the problem. We've got some users of the trail that don't adhere to the signs. The signs are not only on the end of the trail, but even when you first come in. When you first drive in, there's a sign right there that basically says, in your cars only, to go over that bridge. So for that aspect of it, like is what's been mentioned, the whole car's access to this is still the same. If you have your car and you've got bike racks on your car and you've got kids in your car, you can just drive the car over the bridge, get out of the car, step right on the trail. Trail's immediately to your right or left, depending on where you park. The issue is people that live over on Hill Avenue that want to bike across the street or walk across the street. They can't do it right now. And that's where a lot of the initial controversy came from. And so these rights of way that we had, which were established when they got their easements to do the building they did, and the whole land swap thing with Fireworks Island, this was all set up so that we could eventually do this someday. What we probably hoped at the time was that we could come out with some better agreement for the existing driveway. If in a perfect world, the way we are able to go over it right now with vehicular traffic, in a different mindset, maybe we could have also walked and biked over it, and none of this would be needed. But it didn't come to pass. The people that lived there had concerns about people trespassing on the property outside of the access, so they limited it. And that's within their right, whether we agree with it or not. This is our solution to get to it. I agree that there might be some concern with trying to cross Route 150, but it's being done anyway. People do it anyhow. I think the bigger issue is the people that get off that end of the trail and they want to walk along that same side of the street. They can't do it right now to even go up the street and get a pizza. You can't walk along the grassy area on the same side of the street, go to the plaza where the post office is, and get a pizza because you're prohibited right now. So it kind of takes some of the utilization out of that end of the trail. We talked about, someday we're going to have to take care of this bridge with our own dollars, and we will. The people that did the work at Kendrick Park, that helped raise the money to put the things there, and the town put them in, we're going to have to take care of that someday. I don't look at a park as a cost center necessarily. I know fundamentally it is, but it's something that is effectively free to do outside of the fact that there's a cost to maintaining the parks. We talk about, these types of things are for good times. Well, I think good times are relative. So I can make the argument that unemployment is 3.9% and the stock market's at all-time high. So we're in good times right now. State of Connecticut's a mess, but we're in good times. But if we're not in good times, what better thing to have than something free like a trail that we could be proud of to be able to utilize? And I want to be able to utilize it fully. And I have not yet to the comments of, yeah, these are tax dollars coming down from the state for bonding that they can't afford to do. And I agree. Every one of those points in black and white are absolutely correct. I'm one of the first people that would be up here arguing against the use of money like this when there's a lot of pushback from people in the town, because I've done it before. I have not had anybody come to me and say, don't borrow this money, don't spend this money, don't apply for this bond, I don't want it. I have heard plenty of people tell me, I can't wait for this to get done so that I can cross the street, so I can go up the street. So I'm completely for it. I think all of the contrarian points of view up here, they're smart ones to have. I don't want to disparage any of the concerns that have been brought up, because they're all smart concerns, and that's why Wallingford does very, very well with what Wallingford does. But at the same time, and John, I'll help you out. I'll be the guy that's going to say it. If we didn't put in for the money, somebody else would take it. And I'm glad we're taking it. Because again, I haven't heard anybody oppose it. Come up to me and say, we really shouldn't be borrowing this money in these kinds of times. We can afford it. We've got the money, we've got the ability, and we've got stewards out there that are out there watching this trail every single day. I've seen people, regular people, just walk the trail, pick something up that somebody dropped, calling in when that fountain is running, calling Public Works that the pails are full. They come out, like Craig said. They come out to the volunteer cleanups. Me and my kids, we do them just because something gets overgrown and we see it. We make a special trip back just to clean it up. That's the kind of stuff that good times, bad times are always there. So I wholeheartedly support this, and I just wanted to kind of throw my support on top of it as part of the discussion here today. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Zandri. Councilor Morgenstein.
Yeah, so jumping off of Jason and Rod both, the community aspect of this is huge, and we've, just redone our plan of conservation and development, and I think Yalesville sometimes feels like the lost part of Wallingford. We need to think about this also from people in Yalesville being able to get to Wallingford. I have a friend that lives Colonial Drive area. He walks or bikes to work at the Silversmith Park. I don't want to just think of this as a park weekend walk sort of setting. This is, as you say, a connectivity issue. We have been given the job of making biking and walking trails and trains and buses and all of these non-car items part of transit in this state, and money has been used in this state very much for transit. So it's not just a leisure place. So I think it's been well said. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Morgenstein. Councilor Marone.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Real quick, a lot of my thoughts have already been said by other council people. Of all the functions of government, parks are one that I think we would all agree is a valuable function for the government to take part in. Where the state gets the money, or why the state thing, while Rome is burning, the state seems to find $400,000 to spend on our parks. That's really not a Wallingford issue as much as it is a state issue. So, we have an issue in Yalesville with the residents and the Yalesville on the Green and access and so on and so forth. I think this project will help to alleviate some of that. In addition, this is something that people in town use. I would like to see us take the same approach with community pool, quite frankly, and have folks from the community come together and try to come up with a working solution on how to solve the community pool issue. So I don't know how any of us would say to a group of residents that have an idea for something that people generally love that, we're going to pass on money from the state because we have some sort of a moral obligation not to. So I think it's a good project, and I appreciate you guys coming forward with it. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, and Councilor Letourneau again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rob, it was brought up earlier, and you had mentioned something about a boardwalk to kind of bridge a dip of some sort. Is that part of this project, or will that be in addition to?
Yeah, so this project, the cost estimate of $1.1 million is the bridge over the raceway and the trail component up to the Main Street sidewalk. So yes, it may be designed as some type of boardwalk system. It may simply be a retaining wall system. We'll have to see when it's finally designed in detail at a construction level.
Okay. All right, I thank you. Thank you for coming tonight to answer these questions. I know everything's been said very eloquently by my fellow councilors. I'm still staying with my original statement. I think it's wrong for this time to spend this money. And, Councilor Marone brought up a point about parks and putting money in parks. And yes, in existing parks, it's something we have to maintain. They're there. But to create a new program, something new in hard times, it's just not a prudent spending of the taxpayers' money. I can't do it. Just can't do it. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Letourneau. I'll throw my 2 cents in. I loved everything that Councilor Marone said. I agree with Councilors Andrew and Morgenstein as well and their support for this, accepting this grant. I don't see it as something new. I see it as continuing to finishing the project that we've set out to do a long time ago. But that being said, there's no motion on the table right now. So if somebody wants to be so inclined to make that motion, that would be a good idea.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
make a motion that we approve the resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an assistance agreement with the state DOT for the Quinnipiac River Linear Trail Project.
Second.
Great. Thank you, Councilor Marone and Councilor Sandri. Any questions or comments from the public? Just your name, address, and your positions in this case for the record.
Kathy Granucci, co-chair Linear Trail Committee, 53 South Orchard Street in Wallingford. I just want to stress that the reason that we kept pursuing putting together the whole project with Rob for this bridge is that the residents of Yalesville want this alternate path of transportation to downtown. It's recreational, and again, Yalesville has felt left out over time in getting other benefits from the town. So I know that the residents of Yalesville will immediately start using the trail from their end of town. As we have other crosswalks at traffic lights in town, this crosswalk will be safe and secure as well, just as any other crosswalk at a traffic light would be. So, I just do want to stress that, and we have appreciated over the years all the support we've had from you all on the council.
I'm her co-chairman, Mary Wyszynski, and we've been very aware of the conflict between the trail users and the adjacent residents. And we've been working with our town engineer to try to find grants to fill that gap. And this is one of the bigger ones that the town was able to get. We have several other ones, and we're pooling all this money in order to do the Fill the Gap project. But we were responding to a need that was out there. There was this conflict. In one case, there was even a person in a wheelchair was not allowed to cross and get on the trail, which was pretty upsetting to us because we like to think of this project as open to everybody. And it is our goal, as Kathy said, to link the two sides of town together so you can actually get from Yalesville to Wallingford or Wallingford to Yalesville off-road without taking your car out of the driveway and taking your bike or walking on a pleasant walk through the woods to get to the other side of town. This is an alternative transportation type grant. A small percentage of DOT's money is set aside for non-vehicular alternative transportation. And this is one of those grant programs. And it's designed to alleviate congestion and to encourage people to get out of their cars once in a while and use bicycles or their feet to get somewhere, reduce congestion on the roads, and be healthier. So that's really what it's for. If you test it on your bike, it's actually, at prime drive times in Wallingford, it's actually faster to go on the trail from one end of town to the other than it is to drive your car. So we thank you for the support that you've given the trail so far. We've worked very hard to try to fix this gap problem, and we ask the council to help us by accepting this grant and allow us to work with the town engineer to resolve this problem that's been outstanding for more than a year. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from the public? Seeing none, we'll come back to the council for comments. Are there any other comments from the council? Councilor Fishbein?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for Rob, I totally do not think this is an alternative transportation thing, but let's just say that somebody was going to go from downtown to Yalesville using this alternative transportation thing on a bike. What's the plan for bike racks at that end of this trail?
Well, I think that's a detail that could be considered. I hadn't frankly thought of it, because if you were a bike user,
Because
I don't know why, I can't see that you would leave your bike and then walk away.
Yeah, you're not gonna
That's-
No, but
away from your
if
bike.
somebody, we have a vibrant downtown to a certain extent, that it's represented to us, people from Yalesville want to go to the downtown, that's their destination. I would expect that if this is actually an alternative mode of transportation, that you would have some sort of perhaps development at the other end, which would be Yalesville. There's a strip right there. I think it's got a vaping shop right now, but there's a restaurant, right? So that's somewhat of a destination that somebody, after their very long trip from downtown Wallingford to Yalesville, may want to stop and get something. Is there any plan for?
There wasn't, but I think it's something that we could certainly consider. It sounds like a good idea.
Okay.
But as far as, I'm not debating, if this is alternative transportation or not, but the one thing that it is for somebody, if this was completed, this is a 2-mile alternative to having the bike down Route 150 if you were coming into town from Yalesville.
Oh, agreed. I totally, I've walked it and all that stuff. I guess after hearing everything, I totally recognize the problem over there. As I said, I've met with some of the residents, and I know, and I talked to somebody from Public Works who was screamed at one day. He was attempting to do their job over there, but it's just a lot of bad stuff. So, I think at a certain level, this is fixing a problem that needs to be fixed.
I agree.
So, with that exception, I'm inclined to support this here tonight, recognizing that fix. So I thank, you, Rob, and everyone else for the comments and the discussion and the debate. So,
Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Zandri.
Just really quickly, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councilor Fishbein, unless I'm not remembering it correctly, I think that end of the trail already has bike racks. They're the modern type of bike rack that basically snakes like a big, like letter M. They're by the benches. The end right now ends in that circle, and there's a couple of benches, and I think I recall that those are there right now at that far end, if I'm not mistaken. I've never used them because when I bike down there with my kids, we just turn around and head back, but.
Yeah, I would expect that if this project comes to fruition, it may be more helpful for the users to have bike racks at the end.
Yeah, I do believe that they are there. I'm trying to work from
At the new
memory.
end. At the
Right, in the Yalesville end. The Yalesville end has them.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the council? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, will you take the roll?
Thanks. Fishbein,
Yes.
Laffin,
Yes.
Letourneau,
No.
Marone,
Yes.
Morgenstein,
Yes,
Testa,
Yes.
Yes.
Zandri. Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 3RB,
Thank you.
which is a second part of that. Is there a motion from the council?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the acceptance of the CTDOT 2017 Community Connectivity Grant Program, or grant, in the amount of $400,000 to fund the pedestrian bridge component.
Second.
Thank you, Councilors Maroney and Zandri. Are there any questions or comments from the council on this motion, even though we've already kind of discussed it all? No. Anything from the public? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Fishbein,
Yes.
Letourneau,
No.
Marone,
Yes.
Morgenstein,
yes,
Yes.
Zandri,
Yes.
Laffin.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Thanks, Rob. Agenda item number 5, public question and answer period. Are there any general public questions? Any answers? Usually there are answers. No answers tonight? Right. Seeing none, we're going to move on to item number 6 then, the Board of Education. Possible action regarding the United Public Service Employees Union. Welcome back, take a seat, introduce yourselves for the record.
Sure.
Sal Menzo, Superintendent, Wallingford Public Schools. I have with me
Danielle Blizzy, Assistant Superintendent for Personnel, Wallingford Public Schools.
Roxanne McKay, Board of Ed Chair.
Great, thank you, welcome, and congratulations, and officially welcome to Ms. Belize on her. This is your first time in that chair in this role?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
So we're here tonight with the contract for the Managers Union. This union consists of 2 employees, the Director of Buildings and Grounds and the Director of IT. So in this contract negotiation, it's a 3-year contract that was negotiated. In the year 1, which is the present year that we're in, the GWI is a 1.75. In year 2, 2%. In year 3, 1.85%. So those were the general wage increases. There are no steps with this contract. I know in our previous conversations we've talked about steps. There are no steps in this contract. In previous contracts, we already had removed the waiver for this union. So I know that's usually a conversation that comes up quite often. So there are no waivers provided to this union. They will be switching over as their only plan, the HSA plan, this coming July 2019, at which time, again, in each of the years, the first 2 years, the insurance percentage premium cost share is 19%. In the 3rd year, the 2nd year into the HSA, it would be a 20% cost share. The deductible is 50%. We did get some other gains with retirement language. 5 years of service is a requirement as a minimum. We also saw some areas that we had to improve upon based on data that we had collected over the last contract, that in terms of transportation allowance, we did have to do some adjustments to those, providing additional funds because there was additional transportation that different travel between sites that we were requiring our staff to do. And the last piece is that we did agree to a stipend. There's already language in the contract at this time that allows for a stipend to be given to an employee in this union for extraordinary work or for special circumstances. We wanted to kind of give more structure to that by offering a set dollar amount up to. It doesn't necessarily have to be, and it doesn't have to be annually, but $2,250, so $2,250, the maximum that could be, rather than leaving it open-ended. Other than that, with the exception, there was a reduction in the dental plan that was brought to us by them because their premiums were higher by having all the riders. So they only wanted 1 rider on the plan, which was acceptable to the board because they pay that dental plan themselves. That's not a cost to the Board of Education. And they will be going to biweekly pay, I forgot this one, as of July 1st, which is very helpful for accounting purposes at central office. So these were we consider these very successful negotiations. They're key members of our organization. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Great, thank you. Any councilor questions? Councilor Fishbein?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, all. Just focusing for a moment on the stipend situation, what is the criteria by which one determines that the stipend is going to be paid out over and above the regular wages?
The stipend was discussed in relationship to the increase in capital improvement projects that have occurred over the last 4 years in the district, based on the fact that we were able to enter into a series of great conversations with the mayor over that time about putting money into our school systems. So what happened is, over the last several years, we've had multiple projects. This summer, definitely well over $2, $5, $6, $10 million worth of projects, starting with the roofing projects, starting with working through the planning and phasing in of the project of the turf at Lyman Hall, as well as several HVAC projects. And then this summer we had window projects and auditorium projects. So in lieu of having to pay for a clerk of the works, which would be an additional cost to all those projects, which would be quite expensive, and add additional resources or take away from resources from the town, potentially adding to the tax increase to taxpayers, we felt that being able to offer a stipend for successful completion of those projects, specifically looking at on-time work that is done to the caliber that we expect, in lieu of having to hire a clerk of the works, that the $22.50 as a flat rate, not included in the salary of the base rate of that person, not accrued over time, not part of the GWI, would be a much more fiscally responsible way of going to basically give credit to the person who's doing the work, but also avoid having to expend those additional funds for another employee on our staff. So the criteria, I'm getting to answering your question, I'm just giving you the background. The criteria, as I said, would be based on successful completion of the project. We understand that that's a very broad definition. We look to generate the criteria more specifically as we move forward with implementing that. As I've shared with my board, the key thing was that this was already language in the contract. The key thing that I wanted...
Where is that present language?
That language, there is language... Let me look at this. Let's see. Oh, it was, excuse me, it's in a side letter or an MOU of the contract, which stated that there could be...
So it's not part of this contract?
Well, it is part, all MOUs are part of a contract, so they do become part of the codified agreement.
Yes.
So the agreement that existed prior to this, and it was another document that we provided for you, was it states that Supervisor Bell is expected to complete certain job descriptions, and then it talks to the effect that prior to this, it stated that for exception work or satisfactory work completion, that there was an opportunity to provide a stipend. We just clarified that. I can provide that additional document if you'd like. I don't have it with me this evening, but I could provide that with you, to you.
You don't have it at all this evening, or?
I'm sorry, I don't have that. I don't know what you didn't understand by that statement. I don't have that document with me this evening. So that would mean I don't have it at all.
Okay, so, and then you said that it's in the document that you gave us earlier this evening?
There's a statement in the tentative agreement, there's a statement which talks about the proposal, but I can get clarification for that for you if you would like, without a problem.
Because I could have, can you point where that is in the TA?
There's, in terms of the actual stipend, it says stipend of pursuant to Article Section 14, Section 3. So it's on page 3 of the document. Page 3 of the document we gave you, the tentative agreement.
Okay, the tentative agreement.
Page 3.
Page 3, yep.
So if you look on there, it states, so if we go here, so if we're looking at, see how it says middle to, well, near the bottom third, if the superintendent determines that there has been a satisfactory completion progress of these projects, he will issue a stipend of $2,250 to the supervisors and grounds pursuant to the Article 14, Section 3.
Were you reading the section, union proposal number 6, wage adjustment? Is that
Correct.
section? Okay.
Correct. And then we modified that. So a stipend, if you go to, actually, excuse me, I'll correct myself. If you go to page 16, it says
So now you are saying you have the language?
Yes, I'm looking at the language right now because we both could have found it together by looking at this, but no.
Okay.
We did the journey together, so I appreciate that. If we look at page 16, Section 3, which stated clearly in this section that I just alluded to, an additional stipend may be granted in any 1 year to reward or recompense administrators who, upon the decision of the superintendent, have satisfactorily undertaken additional assignments or assumed further program responsibilities, or who have demonstrated special excellence in the fulfillment of their regular role. So what we've done is, as I stated earlier, is we have made this more specific by setting an actual dollar amount limit that this can be provided. And also state that we're referencing this in specific cases with the building and grounds individual. We're referencing the capital projects that have been going on. Actually, this tightens, and actually, I mean, again, it might not bring us as far as one might want, but this tightens that particular article to limit my authority of awarding a stipend to this individual.
Okay,
It's
so
actually-
just so that I'm clear
Sure.
here. On page 16
Yep,
of...
section 3,
Of the red line copy
correct,
is the existing language.
correct,
Okay, and the TA that you gave us, page 3, the section that says union proposal number 6, that is the language that will be adopted.
correct.
Okay. So I noticed that one of the criteria based upon this new language that clarifies is satisfactory completion progress. That's a C. So the stipend can be awarded for satisfactory completion. I'm just reading your language.
I'm not going to debate your understanding of that. I think, again, our discussions at the district level in the negotiations is that this would meet the standard that the board has set. So, again, I understand what you're saying. So we want successful completion. And I truly understand that you want a more strict, much more strict criteria. However, I think we also have a balance that the stricter the criteria, sometimes that could be in putting us in jeopardy as well. So I think there's a fine line we walk. I think we could agree that we obviously have to hold this person to a high standard. We have to hold this person to make sure that the job is successful and has met budget, has come in on time, has met the appropriate code inspections, has allowed us to continue the job of our school systems and educating students, and hasn't interrupted with that. So I understand the term satisfactory is never something that instills a tremendous amount of structure or a tremendous amount of definition. But I think based on our collaboration as a central office team, as well as with our Board of Education, giving updates, I think we could trust at the end of the day, based on the amount of information we're given from the buildings grounds on our projects, that we could determine from that and from past experience, and I'm assuming future experience, that satisfactory will be able to be defined by the Board of Education in an appropriate manner to award the $2,250 minimum, that's the maximum, if that's what we decide to award the person on an annual basis.
Well, I would hope that most people think they work at least satisfactorily.
Again, these are for tasks above and beyond. So this is not about the person's normal role and responsibility. This is not about their daily function as a traditional buildings grounds person.
Can you, because you had said something about that having this would eliminate the need for a clerk of the works.
Correct.
So can you point me to the language that says that this is only to happen if we don't hire a clerk of the works?
There isn't language to say that.
Okay, so it is possible, based upon your language,
Correct.
that you could have hired a clerk of the works, which
Correct.
represented here is,
Correct.
intention is not to do that.
Yes. In our effort,
Stipend would still be-
you're absolutely right. So in our effort to be fiscally responsible and not spend potentially another $75,000 to $80,000, we're asking to potentially give a person a one-time $2,250 stipend to save the town close to $78,000, or at minimum maybe $48,000. So yes, I understand what
I
you're
got
saying.
the sympathy portion of that. I got it. But looking
Yeah.
at the,
But it's real. It's not sympathy. It's reality. But that's true.
this is the language that you drafted,
True.
and it does not say that if you don't hire that $80,000 person, that this is now eligible to be paid. That's not. I don't want anybody to think who's watching this that you're actually saving that money, because that's not what it says. It's perhaps the intent.
It's true. You know what? I'm not an attorney. You are, so I'm not in a position to go, back and forth with you as eloquently as you are. But again, it's similar to, I guess, anything we do. You know, the intent of it today, just like the funding you approved personally for the linear trail, down the line, there's probably going to be things that are going to be unintended there too. So the situation with this is that the intent that the board has with this language and the understanding that we have with the present employee in this position is that it is about those large projects and it's in lieu of hiring additional services.
And I just like to weigh in from the board's perspective. So, you know, by the graces of the mayor's office, we have endeavored into significant large capital expenditure projects that 5 years ago and beyond did not exist. So these are now projects that are taken on predominantly in the summer months because obviously the kids are out of school. And these are add-ons to our grounds and maintenance individual supervisor that runs these. This is an add-on. Very, very common in the private sector to reward general contractors, people at that level that manage projects way beyond $2,250, by the way. A lot of times it's predicated on a percentage of the entire project. If they come in under budget, on time, no incidents of injuries, warranties were not violated. I mean, all those things that make it a successful project, not just finishing it. And if you look at the issue negotiated is stated as stipend for excellence in capital plan projects. So this is an opportunity to reward above and beyond what is expected of this particular employee, and not a given, by the way. It's a potential. And it could be looked at year to year based on the scope and volume of additional large capital expenditure, capital projects that are taken on in a particular year for the school district. It may happen, it may not. I appreciate the ambiguity for you, Mr. Fishbein, is not exactly as tight as you'd want it, but it is $2,250. Thank you.
And I would also just like to add, and this is not in conflict with anything, it's just that I did take down your additional wording that you recommended, and obviously that's something that we'll put in our notes for the next negotiation, because I do think you make valid point, that if we added this simple clause in the future, which I don't believe there would be reason for the union to not accept this, the one person, that only when additional help is not provided, be it a clerk of the works. I wouldn't want to necessarily say that a specific term, because then we could start splitting hairs on the term, but only when additional help is not hired to manage the project. So something to that effect. So I do want to take note of that, because I think that is a very value-added comment.
Well, I thank you for that. I just want to point out that, you know, while I did see the word excellence somewhere.
But then it does go back to satisfactory work, so you're right.
The standard is satisfactory. I have no problem with rewarding excellence. I have no problem with that. But what this
that should
says,
be carried through.
this says is that you reward satisfactory.
No, you're absolutely right. That should be carried through. So again, that's another note that we can make for the next time around with the one person in this union.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Welcome, Councilor Letourneau.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With making subtle changes, you probably brought it down to a 3-volume set of more regulations. But I like it so that you didn't get locked in, because there might be a time when this individual cannot do project management, and you're going to have to, you might have a very specialized project that is going to take a specialist in that field to oversee the project. So, you know, it can happen. It can happen. I have done construction management in the past, and there's different phases of it, and not one shoe fits all. So I think for the projects that you have on board, this individual can handle them, but there might come a time when even he would say, hey, this is beyond me. Absolutely. And you're going to go in. So so it's good to keep it simple, I Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the council?
I'm going to make a motion.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to accept the collective bargaining agreement between the Town of Wallingford Board of Education and the United Public Service Employees Union, Local 424, Unit 18.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Are there any other additional comments now that there is a motion on the table? Seeing none, are there any comments or questions from the public? None. Madam Clerk?
Fishbein,
No.
Letourneau,
Yes.
Marone,
Yes.
Morgenstein,
Yes.
Testa,
Yes.
Zandri,
Yes.
Laffin.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just as a side note on this too, for the folks at home, this is only a two-member,
Yes, two,
Bargaining
yeah.
unit.
It's the IT director and the one building
okay.
directors.
I just wanted the folks at home to know that.
No worries.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I think
Hey.
most of you can just keep your seats, yeah. We're going to move on to a bid waiver at an estimated cost of $105,962 for Silo Class System, a daily incident crisis management solution using existing devices and networks. And I know that the Board of Ed and the administration's put a lot of time into figuring all this out. Security is obviously an issue, but $105,000, $106,000, it's a lot of money. And I thought it was also a good opportunity, so I wanted to put that forth for everybody to discuss and have their questions.
Sure.
Do you have an introduction that you want to start with? Or?
No, I'm good.
We'll start with questions. Councilor Fishbein?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So how would one, I'm all for security, all that stuff, I know a lot about this stuff. How would one get hooked up with Siloc and know what they offer?
Basically, we've been doing an extensive research with the fire department, the police department, and our security team at the district level on how we can look at reducing response time in the event of emergencies. So we started doing some research with a variety of companies. In the process, because, as you know, the federal government released some funds over the summer, all superintendents received on a daily basis emails and alerts from hosts of security companies. In the process, I read them, and you start looking at them, and you start saying, I start watching little videos of what's going on. And at the same time, we had a local company who offers security resources, and the town has utilized, as well as the school district. At the same time that we received some information about Silox through the internet, through the general emails that go out to all superintendents, they also approached us about this product that was emerging. So that's how we became aware of this, but we had interviewed other companies because the whole idea is that we're, as I said, without going into detail that would compromise potentially some security pieces, it's meant to reduce response time, and that was our goal. One of our goals that we established this past year with our district safety team, again with the police chief and the fire chief, was to look at if there's an issue, and not just a catastrophic issue, but just any daily issues that occur in our buildings, potentially medical issues, whatever it may be, how can we reduce that response time. So our committee charge was to kind of do our own little research and find different opportunities. So we did research a couple others. This particular product is the only one of its kind out there because it takes actually what a variety of other products do and puts it all under one umbrella. And the company's been around for 35 years. So they have a history in the security field, but they've really capitalized on one area that we believe, and the mayor has also been part of these conversations, that we see this as truly putting us in the front of the line when it comes to being able to provide the resources for our teachers. It addresses a lot of the concerns that we heard at the public forum that night from some of our staff who spoke about empowering them to be able to act on an emergency if they see one. It does that much more effectively, much more cost effectively, but also much more efficiently than some of the devices that we had already previously investigated. So again, it was a lot of research that was coming at us because as soon as any companies, and I'm sure you receive this if you're in the business field, as soon as there's a federal grant that goes out, you get those emails coming at you. We were vetting those, and at the same time, we heard from our local company who said this is something that maybe you want to take a look at. So we did look at it, and we looked at other products, and we saw that this one truly does, again, something that the other products just can't do at this time.
So where you are now, how is that different from where you would be if we had authorized an RFP 6 months ago? It sounds like you did an RFP already.
I don't think, I guess you could, if you want to go in that direction, yeah, I guess you could say that, but I guess the fact is that we're just smarter than we would be, and the fact is that we know that this product, actually the RFP probably wouldn't have been as complete, because the fact is we didn't even know some of the things we didn't know. This product led us to understand that if we had gone with X product or went out to RFP, we would have missed some of the elements that this product actually offers, because we might not have identified those as areas of need. This product, again, it takes present technology, it integrates it with itself, and then it allows us to do many things that we might have thought we would have had to buy as add-ons. This is all encompassed. But I can understand what you're saying, that that process, we did ferret out, obviously, what was the best product.
So I guess the one difference is that the general marketplace doesn't get the publication or doesn't get notice that Wallingford Board of Education is looking to buy a product. That's the one difference.
Well, the one difference, I guess that would be the difference, but again, the other difference is that there wouldn't be another product that could do everything that this does.
Other than the internal research you did, because you didn't issue a document saying, this is what we're looking for based upon our research, who can meet it? So because you didn't issue a document like that.
So I totally understand what you're saying. The fact is, though, that again, through the research that we've done, through looking at the websites that the state provide us, this is the company that can do all those things. Again, if it's the druthers of the town council to go out to bid, I'm fine with that as well.
No, what's wrong with it? What's wrong with an RFP?
There is nothing wrong with an RFP.
Okay.
And if that's what you choose to do as a town council, that's fine. We'll go through that process. We'll just, take a few more months, and of course, that's time that unfortunately, we won't have the system in place. But
We've already taken it upon yourself to have resources utilized by the Board of Education to do all this research.
Well, it was my time. So I'm a resource, and most of my hours, if you don't pay me for the hours, I totally work technically. So, I probably do a lot of hours outside the traditional work day, which, I could do this. So I take safety very seriously.
I thought you said a committee did this.
Well, a committee, we brought a committee together, but we're doing this on our usual hours. So again, I don't think there was any extra expended. That's a state statute. You actually, well, no, you weren't at the state when it came out that we have to have a district safety committee. So normal meetings occur over the summer. So that's when we did this during our normal meetings. I did some research. I brought in, obviously, the normal people on the committee. So again, I don't want to debate the process because I'm certainly not looking to circumvent it. But if that's the druthers of the town council that we go to an RFP, we go to an RFP. It's not a problem.
I'm just always concerned when, I can see bid waivers when it's somebody we've always done business with, like the police with Motorola and stuff like that, because, we're integrating into something we already use. But I get really suspect when it's somebody we've never done business with before.
Sure. No, that's totally.
And we got a bid waiver. So
totally understandable.
Who else is using this product?
This product is predominantly being used down south, Pennsylvania, Texas, North Carolina. They're emerging market, and this product is emerging in its implementation in the Northeast.
Yeah, I don't know of anybody in the Northeast.
No, there isn't. We would be the first. So again, we would be one of the districts that would be, in the forefront of the fact of this product really moving us forward in our ability to respond in a safe manner and a timely manner in an event of a tragedy.
And I didn't see anything, has Chief Wright been involved with this?
Actually, it says it in the letter, the last sentence on the first page of the one-page letter. It says this request has the support of the mayor, the chief of police, the fire chief, and purchase agent of the Wallingford.
So in the context of that, has the chief reached out to, I think Pennsylvania is perhaps the closest that somebody uses this product? I know if he's reached out
I
as far
can't
as
speak for
problems?
whether or not, I can't speak for that. I know we did a webinar, we did a couple of webinars with the company, and the chief and other staff members from the police department and fire department were there to be able to answer or ask questions. They left that satisfied, more than satisfied, and that's why we're here today. And that's why prior to coming here, we met with the mayor, with the chief, with the fire chief again, just to make sure that they felt comfortable, because again, I will do whatever process I need to do. I'm not looking to circumvent anything. I'm not looking to shortchange any process. So that's the usual process we do, is if we have a product like this, we bring in the people that are involved, we invite them in, we let them look at it, then we also have it before we put it on an agenda. We make sure that the mayor feels comfortable and those that are going to be named in the document feel comfortable. That is our normal process. But again, I am not shy. We write our own RFPs and we get them approved by the purchasing. We could do that if that's what you choose.
And this 105,000, that's the, it says estimated cost. I mean, we hear estimates up here. Is there a better number? I mean, is it?
Again, the wording of that, I took under the guidance of a variety of different people at the town, just because, again, we have to finalize, if we go with this company, we have to finalize the contract. I wouldn't say it would be more than that. I just have to be cautious because, again, we just want to be fiscally responsible. We did, just so you know, on another note, in terms of where the money's coming from, because I haven't had that question yet. This was, at the end of last year, the board had looked at our 1% that we'd be asking, and this was going to be part of the 1%. Initially, the 1%, we had allocated money for hardwired panic buttons, and that was valued at more than what this product would be valued at, and that this would address the concerns that the hardwired panic buttons would have addressed.
Just to stay on the price
Sure.
here, is it a 10% variance? We don't expect anything more than that?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, you're.
And this is to pay for the infrastructure itself, the actual.
The system. Yeah, the system that integrates with other infrastructure. There's a $4,000 annual maintenance fee that would come after, that we would put in our normal budget.
Okay, and that's it?
That's it.
Is there any software?
It's all web-based, so there is not, the initial setup is with the software, and then it works off of the other devices that are provided.
So the updates are web-based?
Correct.
Okay, but it's not monitored web-based, correct?
I'm sorry.
As far as when something happens, all of the relays are directly internal. It doesn't have to go to their system.
No.
Like that.
No, it's locally monitored. However, obviously there's access web-based for police, fire to the system.
Okay.
Yeah, but you're absolutely correct. We wouldn't want that, because then
Or would I?
the response time is diminished.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councilor Morgenstein?
Yeah, hi, thank you. Yeah, so that was one of my questions. We have this statement that the chief and fire and the mayor are all on board. The mayor's here, but the chief and fire are not. It might have been nice to be able to ask some questions directly.
I can't.
Yeah, no, I know, you can't mandate, I'm just expressing that. So we're looking at a whole new system. You've well investigated, as you say. Do we feel like our own infrastructure, what we have in place right now that would interface with this, that we are using to its maximum capability?
Yes, definitely. This takes it to another level. This is not a new system, meaning that it's replacing anything. This is an additive system. So it's taking what we already presently have, which is very effective, state-of-the-art, and it's actually just taking it to the next extent. What we've been charged by the state and the federal government is to annually, or actually we do it monthly, but annually revise our safety plans And so in doing so, we always try to look at how can we take what we have and expand the potential to create a safer environment. So that's what this is doing.
And so the fact that this isn't in use particularly in this area, we unfortunately have the benefit of being in the area of a town that had a big crisis. Do we know, have we talked to people at Newtown, what they are using, what their costs are like?
They're using everything that we presently have. They just don't have this enhancement. They have not implemented this enhancement.
And so given that they have unfortunately suffered the way they have, why do we feel that they may not feel they need it? Well, I think it's a very legitimate thing. I sat in the same meeting that you did, and unfortunately, I'd much rather see some different ideas from some of the real fear.
Yeah, see, I don't know if they are or they aren't, so.
Right, well, and that's why I asked, have we asked? I think unfortunately, being their neighbors, I think asking that question to me feels very legitimate from people who have been there. And people who are very actively in touch with other places that have been there.
I think it's difficult for me to talk about the system in generalities, so, I mean, I know we do have potential ability, because it is an item of safety, to have a further conversation in executive session at another point if you'd like. That's fine with me. But again, I can't really speak for why other communities have chosen not, and I know you're not suggesting I could.
Right, I'm just, you know.
No, it's a good wondering, it's a good wondering.
Yeah. So, well, I'm happy to hear that, you know, I know that there's times on the government side that we're not fully using our technology, but I think on your side we definitely are. And, I tend to go with I'd like to have some better and more information here.
Sure.
Thank you.
So we can plan for, not to tell you but I would suggest that we then look to have an executive session.
It's fine with me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Letourneau.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's exactly where I was going to go with this, there's only so much you can tell us, and there's only so much you should tell us. So an executive session I think would be helpful. From what I understand of this system, it's quite a good system, and I think it'll be a great enhancement to the Wallingford school system. We try to do everything we possibly can to make the school safe, and this is going to be one step further that is really going to work. As much as I don't like bid waivers, I will support this tonight because I know you did your homework on this, and you did a lot of work on this. And I think if we go out to an RFP, I think we're going to come right back to where we are right now. Is there others out there? Sure, there probably is, but there's got to be a starting point and a stopping point, because there's always better. Even after the bid is awarded and we own the project, own the hardware, there could be something bigger and better out there that we don't know. So, you have to know when to say when. And I think we're good. I think we're good with this. I feel comfortable that all involved, the mayor, the police and fire chief in particular, has looked at this, and I think knowing those two gentlemen, if there was a question or if there was something that wasn't right, we would know about it. They're not bashful of telling us, it's not a good, or telling you that, this isn't such a good thing. So I think there was enough eyes on this to trust it at this time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, just on that, the police and fire departments were very pleased with this, and were thoroughly informed on it, and certainly their concerns would be how it would interface with our dispatch system, and they're pleased.
Great. And I'm comfortable with the bid waiver as well. I know that the bid system is intended to prevent corruption and reckless spending, and the bid waiver exception is intended to create checks and balances for proper examination, discussion, and consideration. I think with all the people involved, not just at the Board of Ed, but the police, fire, And then here tonight, I think we've done that, and bid waivers are particularly useful in technology and security, which this combines both of. And they have experience with southern schools, and half of our schools were designed with a southern design, so maybe they can use that. And if they have any heating tips, they can do that too. But as far as executive session wise, if that's something the council's interested in, we can put that together. I don't know if it prevents anybody from being comfortable from voting on this tonight. There is no motion on the table.
Yeah.
So if we could process that in some manner or another, so we need some sort of motion and then a discussion on whether we want to proceed with that.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve a bid waiver at an estimated cost of $105,962 for Silac class system, a daily incident and crisis management solution using existing devices and networks.
Second.
There's a motion and a second from Councilor Fishbein and Letourneau. There were comments from Councilor Morgenstein and Councilor
Yeah.
Sandry.
Yeah, my comment was I'd rather have an executive session, a little more of a discussion before we're voting on a bid waiver.
Okay, Councilor Sandry.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, Zal, you've been up here long enough to hear me complain about bid waivers, and I'm usually one of the first persons to have an issue with it. And much to the idea of going into an executive session, to me is always attractive to help push me on the side of this is a good idea. But for myself personally, I don't need it because the diligence is already there. The mayor, the police chief, the fire chief, they're all comfortable with it. So that it gives me enough comfort to be able to defend a decision to go ahead and approve a bid waiver. And anybody that comes back to me and goes, you know, if we could have put it out the bid, we could have saved X, I would feel comfortable enough in defending the position. So with the motion on the table tonight, I'll be supporting it because, again, my normal reaction to a bid waiver is why? Why do we need it? And to me, we've answered enough questions to kind of justify the need. So I'm in support of it. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from the council on the motion? Seeing none, any questions or comments from the public? None. Madam Clerk, can you please take the roll call?
Thank you. Fishbein,
Yes.
Letourneau,
Yes.
Marone,
Yes.
Morgenstein,
No.
Testa,
Yes.
Sandry,
Yes.
Laffin.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
guys. Have a
Thank
good
you.
night. Thanks. And we'll be in touch, I guess, on some sort of executive session briefing and just updating.
That would be great, actually. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Question on that, does the executive session need a real-time display of the capability, or is it a discussion?
I think that depends on what the Board of Education would want to present to us.
I just think.
I'm
No.
willing to, we could do either or both, because we've actually shared some of that with, obviously, the chief and the police have seen it. And obviously, Mayor, you saw a little bit of it in my office. We walked through a similar presentation, so I'm at the will of the town council. So if you want to think about it and get back to me, I'm fine with that. I'm at the will of yours.
I mean, in terms of an executive session on this, we could hold it now, but obviously there's not an ability to show the product.
Yeah, and we've made the motion and moved on. I think people now, at this point, it's about just having information,
Yeah.
being informed, and going forward, not to question or necessarily intervene in the decision
Sure.
process.
So,
Mr. Chairman, would it be, maybe it would behoove you to have it at your facility, at your time, that you could invite the counselors that are
Well,
interested?
and not to jump too ahead and spoil the alert, but we're gonna be probably back here next meeting for another contract. So if you did wanna put an executive session on that meeting, I could always do it then, or I could do it whichever way. I'm fine, as I said, we're here to give you the information you desire.
I think an executive session, would have been helpful maybe before our meeting, but
Understood.
that ship has sailed, the vote is taken,
Yeah,
it's passed, so now it's purely informational. And I think it would be better for counselors that wish to know more about the system, you know, to contact you and put together a.
Is that
Zoom
acceptable?
meeting.
Oh, yeah, then please, then just give me a call. You could come on over and I'll show you. Thank you so much. It'd be great to touch base anyway. All right.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item number 8, a request to approve utilization of the qualifications-based selection procedure for a wholesale power procurement auditing consultant, the electric division. Good evening.
Good evening.
Name for the record.
Richard Hendershot, Director of Public Utilities.
How are you?
Well, yourselves?
Great. Do you want to start with an introduction or you want to go right to questions?
Well, the service we're looking for is to do what would for us be the second ever audit of our wholesale power procurement activities. We use this process to identify the service provider the first time. They did an audit of our processes and activities through the end of calendar 16. It's not something that needs to be done annually, but it needs to be done periodically. And it was quite difficult finding someone to do this. It took 2 efforts through this process and in between informal solicitations by the comptroller before we found a qualified entity to respond. So we're back asking for permission to use the same purchasing process to identify a qualified firm and you know, to do this periodic audit of our wholesale power supply activities.
Thank you. Any questions from the council? Councilor Letourneau.
Good evening, Mr. Hendershot.
Good evening.
Was this done once before?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, how long ago?
The report came in September of 17. It was for the period of late 13 through the end of 16.
Okay.
39 months of activity is what was looked at.
Okay, so this would be the same company that did the prior one?
It would be whoever responds to, this is a qualification-based bid, you know, qualification-based selection process. We would issue an RFP but use the QBS method of selecting the vendor. It might be the same firm, it might be someone else.
Okay.
It's not a bid waiver.
Okay. Because when you first came up, you said that it was difficult getting firms to do this?
It was.
So, but you did get a firm to do it first time around?
Correct.
Okay, and hopefully you'll get the same firm second time around?
Well, I don't want to presuppose. The PUC made it very clear that to me, that they did not want to pursue the bid waiver process, but instead wanted to follow this process in identifying a vendor.
Mr. Chairman.
So how can we help tonight? Excuse me, Mayor. So how can we help tonight?
The purchasing ordinance requires town council authorization to utilize the QBS purchasing method.
Okay.
So that's, I'm seeking council concurrence with doing so.
I understand. I'm sorry, Mayor.
Just maybe I can help. The purpose of the audit is to determine whether we're following our risk policy with regard to the buying of basically the future commodity in power. And I guess we are one of the few that actually do any auditing. They have policies, but they may not be spending much time doing auditing. So it's an important effort of ours to see that we are adhering to the policies that we've put in place through action of the PUC. So the qualification base allows them to review qualifications, the expertise, you know, the performance of various firms and determine who is able to do this work. And after you determine the qualifications are sufficient, then you deal with the price issue. But it's a very technical area. Not a lot of firms are doing it because, like I say, we're one of the few who seek an audit on this matter.
Mr. Chairman, if I may follow up. Rick, with the first time it was done and the results that you got back, did it help?
It did. There were no significant findings, certainly nothing, serious or frightening. But there were a few, semantical changes of documents, a few tightening up of some paperwork.
Subtle
exercises.
suggestions,
Recommendations.
recommendations. Yeah.
Would be the sort of the term of art that an auditor or reviewer might use, and we're still working through those, applying them to policies and procedures and putting those things in place.
And just curiously, what was the cost of that the first time around? Roughly.
If memory serves, and it may not, I want to say $40,000. Oh, wait a minute, no. No, that's something different. No, it was closer to $60,000. I anticipate it'll be, that was for 39 months. And they might imagine there's some fixed costs but what will probably then end up being a 24-month period that we look at, I anticipate it being less than half of that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Councilor Fishbein, sorry, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Mr. Hendershot.
Good evening.
So you've identified somebody who would be able to do this?
Well, there was a successful respondent the first time we went out using the QBS method.
And you would expect to utilize that?
I would expect they would respond to the request for qualifications.
Okay, have you reached out to them in anticipation of coming here tonight?
Well, they're aware of our beginning this process, but the purchasing bureau will notify the world, so to speak. It will be generally broadcast, and qualified and experienced firms can respond, and we'll look at their qualifications, and others may respond.
Would you have an objection, let's say, to, should we approve this, to having some sort of monetary cap on this?
I'd prefer not, in the off chance that it tripped over it, because again, it's not a bid waiver. It's a.
Oh, understood.
It's procurement that the price comes last, not first.
Totally understood.
And the ordinance provides for that, so that's the methodology.
I got it.
So I prefer not to put a cap on it because I don't know what it might be. If you ask me for a number, I'll pick one that's very conservative, so I'm certain that vendors would live up.
I was thinking 75,000.
I'll take that. If it helps expedite the evening, I'll accept a $75,000.
Okay, I don't know where I'm going with that right now, but I'm trying to get parameters here.
Well, just so we understand, do you have money already budgeted for this?
Yes.
But at a given amount, you don't know.
Well, this is a wholesale power supply cost, so it's somewhere in that large 8-figure amount that is wholesale power.
Okay.
I was is there a danger to putting a price on it? Because then,
a price lid of that level? No.
Okay. I'm just not sure if it's like.
Well, the danger is someone looks at it and says, we're willing to spend 75,000.
Right, that's all.
Maybe they put 30,000 on it.
Understood.
Right.
I like where he came from to get there, but then I'm just thinking about the other side, yeah.
So 50,000 would be
minutes.
an acceptable number. I'm kidding.
You haven't taken any formal action yet.
Still thinking about this. Just a very technical thing. Attached to our backup is minutes of your meeting of August 21. And I noticed that there was one individual who attended by phone. Your last action would have had to be 7 o'clock because Mr. Beaumont left the meeting at 7 o'clock, and the last vote was by 3 votes, right, on page 5. But then the meeting adjourned 16 minutes later. and no actions. Is there a reason for that?
Reason for what?
Well, it's two individuals meeting about nothing. Apparently, based upon your agenda.
No, and
7 o'clock, we have to assume that last vote happened at 7 o'clock or thereabouts because 3 people voted.
it did.
And because
Then Mr. Beaumont left the meeting. He was attending by telephone and he had somewhere he needed to go to.
And the meeting adjourned 16 minutes later, but
Correct.
nothing happened, at least based upon.
These are the motions. These are not minutes.
Okay.
So there was probably discussion, but no action on items 6 and 7.
Oh, is that, okay, it's not applicable, it's no action.
It's no action.
Okay, by having an NA.
Correct.
Okay, I'm glad that we had that discussion, thank you. I'm still thinking about this item, so, I'm done, thank you.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments from the councilors? Any motions on this? Because right now there aren't any. Councilor,
I'll make a motion that we accept this proposal from the PUC Electric Division.
to approve the utilization of the qualifications-based selection procedure for a wholesale power procurement auditing consultant. Great. Is there a second? Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the council at this time? See none. Anything from the public? Last call from the council? No. Madam Clerk, can we have a roll call, please?
Certainly. Fishbein.
Yes.
Sure about that? Letourneau.
Yes.
Marone.
Yes.
Morgenstein.
Yes.
Testa.
Yes.
Zandri.
Yes.
Laffin.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't know that you're going anywhere, but agenda item number 9, reports regarding an update on improvements to the wastewater treatment plant to meet permit standards as requested by Councilor Morgenstein. Neil, without a bow tie tonight, is joining us. No bow tie?
No bow tie.
It's too hot. Name just for the record.
Neil Amwick, General Manager for the Wallingford Water and Sewer Divisions.
Thank you. Do you want to start talking or start listening to Councilor Morgenstein?
We have a few opening comments
Great.
and
Thank
then
you.
we anticipate a number of questions. First, I want to thank you for the opportunity to provide the council with this, with an update of our ongoing efforts to be under contract for construction of phosphorus removal facilities by close of business on Friday, June 28, 2019. What I'd like to say before I let Neil get into the details of exactly where the project is at this moment is that Sewer Division staff and our design consulting firm, AECom, continue to work diligently on this effort, and our goal is to meet that deep and statutory deadline of a construction contract, for the facilities by the end of June of next year. All parties are truly doing their best, and I would note that even today, Neil and some of his staff were in an excess of 5-hour workshop with AECom going over details of design and addressing some things even sort of ahead of schedule. Having said that, the overall schedule is quite tight, and an example I would provide there is that typically DEEP likes a 90-day review when the design is done. The last schedule we gave them allowed for 45 days, and we highlighted that to them. That if we're going to make June 28 of 19, 45 days is all they get. They don't get 90. That said, DEEP staff has been very good to work with Neil and his staff as far as being available, interfacing with us and the consultant as need be. He'll get into some detailed examples perhaps about some things they did where they sort of broke from their own maybe protocol, how they might review things to help keep our project more on schedule than if they'd have just done things the typical rote way from previously. So with that, I'll turn it over to Neil. He's got a more detailed update, and then we'll entertain questions.
Thank you. So I thought we'd walk through where we are. There's a lot of different things going on at once concurrently. So I just have notes, so then we'll go through questions. The draft full facility plan was submitted to DEP on July 27th for their review, comment, and approval. Similar to the fast track facility plan, which we submitted earlier, Wallingford Sewer Division staff, AECom staff will sit down with DEP in the conference room. It's really an efficient use of time to spend 2 hours just face-to-face walking through this several hundred-page document and pointing out the salient facts rather than just delivering it and say, start reading. So we are waiting to schedule that meeting. The meeting has, we have kind of pushed it to the back burner because right now we are in the midst of our ballasted flocculation phosphorus removal system RFP. So DEP requires you to select a vendor for your phosphorus treatment first, then you use that selected vendor to be incorporated into the overall wastewater system upgrade. So that's kind of a preliminary step. The advertisement for the phosphorus RFP was done through the town's procurement portal on August 22nd, 2018, right around 4 p.m. Questions from any vendors were due last Thursday by 5 p.m. We had 31 questions submitted. Right now, AECom and Wallingford Sewer Division staff are drafting up answers. We should have that done tomorrow. We then need to submit our draft responses to DEP for their approval. They need to sign off on those before we repost the responses on the Bureau of Purchases portal. The due date right now that we are tracking is September 27th, 2018. So the RFP will come in with our classic Wallingford procurement approach. It is a two-part bid. 40% is based on qualitative aspects, and then 60% is based on a financial aspect over a 20-year planning period for both capital costs as well as operating costs. We make a recommendation to DEP. DEP has the final say as to the selected vendor. We then take that vendor and incorporate it into the overall plan. So we have that going on, and at the same time then we've started to move forward with the design. The design is more than just the phosphorus treatment. Regarding our field tasks, the wetland flagging has been complete. The geotechnical and the environmental borings have been complete with the exception of one additional boring that we are going to do as we move through design. We felt it was prudent to do another geotechnical boring that should take place this Friday. Our survey of the property line, topography, elevation of the existing structures is complete, and we continue to monitor groundwater levels. We do have high groundwater. It's next to the Quinnipiac. We would expect that. It's really a function of construction dewatering, and that relates to costs. So our field tasks are pretty much complete. Regarding design, as Mr. Hendershot did allude to, we were in a 5-hour workshop this morning to go over the 30% design. Really starting to discuss some really granular items. Piping layout, anaerobic basins, return activated sludge, secondary settling tanks, UV disinfection, reject water, plant hydraulic grade line. So we are moving forward. We are not going with formal submissions where we wait, we stop, we all get together. This is a very iterative, communicative process. We have formal meetings every 2 weeks with AECom, and then in addition to that, we're holding more correspondence, site visits, etc. Most of the layout and the design is being led by AECom's staff in Rocky Hill, really a lot of the piping. They have what they refer to as the Design Center up in Chelmsford, Massachusetts. That's where they have mechanical, electrical, instrumentation, SCADA, HVAC, structural, and architectural. So there's a lot of different disciplines coming at us at once. It's a tight site. You can imagine, the drawings are being done in 3D, so we immediately can see if there are any conflicts. So, and again, we're a very robust team. Discussions at time maybe get a little heated, but we respect each other's decisions and we ask questions. And a lot of our questions are why, you know, so there's where we stand today. The next steps, we are looking at the 50% design effort is due in early November 2018. That will be followed by a 50% value engineering session. One of the items that Rick did mention is DEP is allowing Wallingford to have one value engineering session. Traditionally, they require 2 value engineering sessions, but because we are just coming off of the full facility plan where we had a value engineering session as well, it is required there. DEP didn't see where there was going to be an what was the value added by having 3 value engineering sessions. You know, and those are big, that's a big process that really can slow down your process. So with that, we'll open it up to questions.
Thanks. And Councilor Morgenstein, this was your item.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so it sounds like it's a very coordinated effort within your department as well as the DEEP and a lot of cooperation. I think the 2 articles that we had in the local paper, May, and then the more recent is what prompted me to want to talk about this. You guys really thank you for being here and are doing exceptional work. My concern had, and perhaps still does have some concern, not so much the timeline, but the availability of funding and the fact, Mr. Letourneau and Zandri said it earlier, other towns can want to gobble up our funding if we were to miss a deadline or such. And as I see quotes from the administration is really where my concerns raise a bit more. The fact that we are in a grant acceptance, we've signed a grant with the state, but yet I still hear questions about why is this being mandated? Do we have to do this? From the administration. I'm getting the impression from the employees doing the work, everybody's all in and we're doing this. And I really wanted to just, you know, be sure that financially the grant and then the low interest loan that we get the money that is needed to do this project. It sounds like you guys are really doing a great job.
Our focus is to meet the deadline, which statutorily then matches up with qualifying for the greatest amount of grant funding, and then the balance being made up with the 20-year 2% simple interest loan. That's what we wake up every morning focusing on and do for the entire working day. And none of that has changed.
Right.
You know, since this got Mr. Amwick and my full attention, that's been job one since our collective day one.
Absolutely,
And
yeah.
whatever else you might hear or read or think you heard or think you read, that's our focus. You know, we remain fixed on the last working day of June by 5 p.m. We have a contract in place to
it definitely sounds that
construct
way.
all the phosphorus mitigation facilities and all the things that touch it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm very happy with what I'm hearing, and it sounds like, again, kind of almost a 24/7, that this is what you guys are living in getting this done for us and the taxpayers to be able to afford this. Ratepayers, okay, thank you, to be able to be affording this big project. Yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Letourneau.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as far as the timeline goes, you guys are pretty much on point. You're okay.
Okay is a relative word.
Well,
we're all right.
You're all right.
I don't know if we're okay, but we're all right.
Okay.
It's tight. And
yeah, I know last time you were here, you were talking about it.
Something could happen, but I don't want to presuppose, any relief, but I think the fact that Neil and his staff are in such good contact with DEEP, they certainly are aware of our efforts and our earnest attempt to do everything we can to meet these schedules and adhere to the legislation. And I think that will serve us in good stead, whatever happens at the end of June.
Okay. Okay, good. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask a question of Representative Mashinsky while she's here.
Sure.
Only because she spoke on this last time. Representative Mashinsky, the last time you came before us when we were talking about this, you had mentioned about you have to keep constant eyes on the money because there's other towns trying to snipe our funds away from us. So can you give us an update on that? Where are we?
We're good for right now. We had a big fight this past session. We found out, Rick actually tipped me off. He said, you ought to watch these bills, and he gave me some numbers, and I looked at them, and one of them was stuck out as a problem. It was Senate Bill 415. I sent it over to Deep, and I said, if this bill passes, what happens to us in Wallingford? And they sent back this chart of who would lose their money if this bill passed. The bill basically gave MDC, Metropolitan District Commission, an 80% grant on their project for combined sewer overflow. And the only way to pay for it would be to take money away from 8 or 9 towns, one of which was Wallingford. So they were going to take $47 million away from us, $58 million away from Southington, $16 million away from Plainville, and so on. And so we teamed up, bipartisan, myself and Vin Candelora, Representative Fishbein, Senator Fasano, and Reps Linehan and Dr. Pettit, and we all worked really hard to mess it up in Finance Committee so that MDC would not get their funding. They do have a paid lobbyist, and they'll be back next year, and they kind of lurk around the edges like a wolf waiting for the weak member of the herd to drop out. So if they see a project not moving, they come in and try to grab that money. Because there's not enough money for everybody, so everybody tussles over it. So this year we did push them away, and we watered down the bill, and then we defeated the bill. But next session, January, could be another episode of seeing whose town money can be stolen for another project. So we have to be vigilant all the time. And I'm really happy with what I just heard. It sounds like our crack staff here is going to get to the deadline successfully. So I'm very happy because then we can collect our funds. And we did in 2016, we did a bill to change the phosphorus grant from 30 to 50. And a number of towns benefited from that, including Wallingford. So we'd really like to collect the money and not have MDC take it from us.
Good, good. And it sounds like it's going to move forward pretty good because there's a good team effort on our side that they're working diligently on this, and seems to be Deep is pleased with what you're doing. So it's not like you're just kind of pushing it along slowly. Sounds like you're pushing it along as fast as you can and doing it right and pushing it along as fast as you can. So that's good. It'll show the Deep, and it'll also show maybe other legislators when the battle comes that, you know, Wallingford is not sitting on their hands, that they are moving forward with this. And we have a good legislative team from Wallingford in Hartford, so I'm confident that we'll see these funds. But so just keep up the good work, and thank you, Representative.
And thanks, councilors, for putting it on the agenda. It's a really good report. I'm very happy to hear it, and I feel relieved. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just, on the record, add to something Representative Mashinsky said. Actually, it was Neil that tipped me off to Senate Bill 415, and he learned about it through our good friends at the Connecticut Water Works Association.
Really important, yeah.
Well, Rick didn't find this thing. Rick just passed the information up.
You're the messenger. Great. Any other questions or comments from the council? Councilor Morgenstein, you all
Sure.
set with the issue?
Yeah, no, I feel very happy. Thank you, gentlemen.
Mr. Mayor?
Before we get too euphoric, I think it's important to mention this will have a significant effect on rates.
You know, we were having a good time before you wanted to bring that up, but
No, it's, for the average ratepayer, probably in excess of $100, $20 to $30 per quarter. And we'll know more as more information is available. For a large user, for a 3-inch connection, it's probably in the neighborhood of $1,000 a quarter. $4,000 annual increase in cost. That's with the grant money.
right?
So the question of affordability is a legitimate question, and we all need to be aware of it and be sure to inform the people out there who will be paying this in their rates, because it will not be something that's unnoticed.
But if they're sad, Mayor, they can walk on the linear trail.
I have one more thing to add.
Sure, Councilor Morgensen.
So in response to that, I have one more thing to add. You know, there's real science behind this. This is not just, you know, we need to do something because the state says so. And I actually, in looking at more information, our nearby river, the Housatonic, has proven cyanobacteria, which can cause human illness. This is not simply a let's have our water look pretty. This is not simply our wildlife and our watershed plant life. This is real human important, and there's a reason that these things are being passed down. Thank you, gentlemen.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to make clear, this is not a public safety, it's not a public health issue. There is no evidence that it's a public health issue. This has a legitimate purpose to clean nutrients out of the water, make it safer, more adequate, better environment for aquatic life. But it is not public safety, and it is not public health.
Noted. Any comments from the public before we are done with this? Seeing none, we're all set. Thank you guys for spending one of your September
Thanks so
evenings with
much.
us.
Good job.
The mayor has indicated that there is an item for number 10, so the chair will entertain a motion to go into executive session pursuant to section 1-206D of the Connecticut General State Statutes with respect to the purchase, sale, and/or leasing of property, as moved by Councilor Letourneau.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Fishbein. All those in favor of going to executive session, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The abstentions, motion passes. Please clear the chambers. Can I have a motion to come out of executive session?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of coming out of executive session, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Seeing none, we are out of executive session. Seeing no further business on the agenda, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any objection? We are adjourned.
Hi, guys. What's the agenda look like tonight?
There's 72 items.
Did you make the coffee?
Nice and strong.
Thank you.
You ready, Russ?
Yes, I'm ready.